1972. And the reason why I didn't continue with them was because they didn't look to be important enough to me. So in a way, I'm kind of telling on myself, and this is not an apology for my stupidity. This is acknowledgement of the fact that I've grown. So that's one way of looking at it. Anyway, I just want you to know that I didn't realize the quality of the people who were in my life at that time. So I'm very happy, without further ado, to introduce Dr. Jimmy Yen to you. And this is, to me, truly one of these special moments of my life. And I know to you, it will also be. So, Dr. Jimmy Yen.
Dear friends, old and new, when Dr. Flavier, who is president of our International Institute of Rural Reconstruction, he goes around to Europe a great deal these days after he spent many years in America. He is a very winsome person. He goes on not just to raise money. He goes on to win friends, to win partners. That's far more important than just having donors. Too bad he should be here today, but he is at home now in Philippines at IIRR. Today, this atmosphere here is so sweet, so cordial, so, shall you use the word lovely? So I feel really moved to share with you something that's deepest in my heart, deepest in my only 70 years of experience. What's that? I made a discovery. Rather rare one, under very unusual conditions. It was during the First World War that Kaiser was very, very wildly ambitious. He wanted the conquest of Europe for himself. So there's an ally consisting of British, French, and most surprising of all, a far, far away friend having to cross an ocean, ready to have their sons, their husbands, sacrificed for what they are sailing from America, crossing the Atlantic, full of torpedoes, to have a part as a third ally. So when I mention the word allies, please understand, I meant the British, the French, and the Americans. They were very busy. There were always lack of men, particularly labor. So the International Committee of YMCA had the idea of recruiting men from China to France to do the labor, like digging trenches, building roads, working in factories, so forth. Now, there were 200,000 of them. They did very fine work. Over 3,000 of them were killed. Quite a number of them were decorated. World War II was decorated with Croix de Guerre, Iron Cross. That's the highest possible in the army. But there was no communication between the officers and these Chinese laborers. Really, the real name of their organization is Chinese Labor Corps. But the officers are used to calling them Chinese coolies. By the way, I must explain to you, and you can learn Chinese in 1 minute. And that is, ku means bitter. The sea of bitterness, that Buddhists would call it, bitter. The other word is power, li. Ku means bitter, bitter life, bitter love. Li means power. It's not too difficult to see the suffering, the bitter life of the people. It's almost impossible. We have another kind of blind man, that is, towards the people are blind. Wenmeng is Chinese illiterate. I call it Minmeng, towards the people, their potentials, they're blind. It's very sad. These Chinese leaders, during the years, emperors, dynasty after dynasty, had adopted what they call ignorance policy. That is to say, keep the people ignorant so that it's easier to govern them. So they were called coolies. I found, to my great amazement, a real human being with great potential in the peasant or in the coolie, who had been buried alive, that is to say, intellectually, socially, for 3,000 years. It's incredible, but it has happened. 85% of our millions, at my time, it's 800 million. 85% were illiterate. From a country that was called a country of culture. Even that culture was built on the back of the coolie. I had the privilege of associating with these men because of that lack of communication. So later on, I decided to recruit Chinese college men studying in the university. Have them go over to help. First, as canteen workers. Second, as interpreters. Just 2 days after my graduation at Yale, I volunteered. I was first stationed in Boulogne, in northern France, with 5,000 of these men. These men never met any outside people. They hardly ever left their villages before. But all of a sudden, they descended upon a country whose name they didn't know. they became terribly homesick. You know that song you ought to know. Be it ever so humble, you go on with the rest. There's no place like home. It's mud floor, mud wall, mud floor, leaky roof. But they were homesick for their loved one. One night, 4 people came to my camp and asked me, Mr. Yan, teacher, would you write a letter to my mother? Oh, I said, yes. Another one to my wife? I said, yes. So I wrote 4 letters. Next day, my business began to flourish. There were over 50 of them. After that, I couldn't count anymore. Just after the return from the trenches, surrounded me in the most pathetic way, wanted me to write a letter to their loved ones at home. I did. But one day, something dawned on me. I had been stupid, writing letters for them, telling news to them about their home provinces. Why didn't I teach them to write themselves? Oh, when I shared this world-shaking idea with my colleagues, I said, now Yan, you are trying the impossible. These coolies have never learned to read in 3,000 years. You think you can teach them? I said, no, my friend, I don't know either. But I'm getting a little tired of writing several hundred letters. It's a lazy way. So I called a mass meeting of the 5,000 men. I said, men, I've been writing letters for you. I've been reading news to you. Beginning today, no more. They all burst out laughing. I understood that Chinese law. That's impossible. You are joking. And no, I mean what I say. Beginning tonight, no more letter writing. For me, from you, for you. I said, those of you who want to learn to write, to read, hands up. I waited. Finally, 40 daring souls had their hands sheepish. Half out. I said, you are my student. You are my student. Beginning tonight, you come to my camp. I'm going to teach you. So they came. I never knew in my whole life that the hunger for knowledge, hunger, we talk about hunger these days, but hunger for knowledge. Every time they come to my class, most of them are doing this, panting. I said, what happened? He said, we don't want to miss your class. We have been running. I said, it's your supper time. No, we don't want to eat. We don't want to miss your class. Ladies and gentlemen, after working for 10 long hours, digging the trenches, and refused to eat, have you done that? That hunger for knowledge, that ability to learn the Chinese characters, which I choose. the very, very commonly used words, not the whole classics. We learn classics by heart. But for these people, I say it's no point teaching them classics. Just like Latin as different as English is. Chinese, all the libraries full of books, all written in the classical. I often say he was pretty lucky. Abraham Lincoln was not born in China, but in America. Why? Because after he became illiterate in China, there was nothing to read. Because the library is full of classical writings. But in America, you could read the Bible, Shakespeare, and even John Milton. That's what made that great speech he made, which was immortal. I was so touched, so moved. I have been belonging to the so-called scholarly class. I was as ignoramus as anybody can be. Yet, I never saw power in them. I traveled with the coolies in China. I looked upon them as coolies, period. But in France, with my daily contact with them, they were able to complete the 4 primers, which cost a fabulous sum of 4 coppers, 1 copper a primer. You must make it accessible for the poor. For the millions, you must make it simple so you can understand. For the millions, it must be indispensable, something they must learn. That's something we have learned in working with the coolies. No, our people, they're not stupid people. They're very intelligent people. They're very good traders, kind of economists. When Spain found Philippines by Magellan, the tribe leader killed him. He put a flag. This is my queen or my king's territory. The Chinese went to the Philippines 1,000 years before Spaniards. What did they introduce? What did they claim? They didn't claim anything, but they introduced a plow. The local people used only the wooden, without using that Chinese plow. I just got so indignant about our people. The people blind. They only see a little bit of they could only see a little bit of their suffering, their coup. They never saw their potential power, if given a chance. I just taught them each night, just 1 hour. In 96 hours, they mastered the whole basic vocabulary of the spoken language, which we were teaching the people. Not the classical. It won't make sense. Now this 45 people, I said 40 people, who had their hands up, I taught them each night. Then I gave them 2 tests after 4 months. That's 96 hours. 2 tests. One was a test to write a simple letter home. The other was a test to read a simple news sheet I got up. 35 passed these two examinations successfully. That was a wonder to me, a wonder to them too, among themselves. But that stirred up the whole camp. Everybody wanted to learn. If those 35 fellows could learn, why couldn't we? Nothing like example. In that simple system, I won't take time to describe, began to spread to other camps. About 70 college students who, like myself, volunteered to go to France to help the coolies. They started also Chinese classes all over behind the firing line. Now, they could read, thousands of them could read, but nothing for them to read on the battlefield. So they came to me again, teacher, you have to do something for us, we want to read something. I run a Chinese labor corps weekly. One day I received a letter from one of the men who had learned to write. He, literally translated, it would go something like this. Mr. Yan, big teacher, since the publication of your paper, I began to know everything under the heavens, rather modestly, isn't it? But your paper is so cheap. It costs only 1 centime a copy. You might have to close down your paper soon. Here I enclose 365 francs, which I've saved during my last 3 years' labor in France to support your paper. That was like a revolution starting in me. Started a revolution in me. My subjects at Yale and Princeton was political science. But those coolies taught me. I didn't teach them very much. They taught me, you, a literate man, you are a scholar. What are you doing to help? There you have at least 365 million, like ourselves. I both felt indignant against his past emperors and his rulers. Same time, I felt very humble. I felt ashamed. In our country, we should have 365 million people who can read. So right there and there, in 1918, I made a vow that upon my return to China, I'm not going to business nor into politics. I'm going to devote the rest of my life to finding an opportunity. What they lack is not brains, they have it. Not this great potential, they have it. God is equal to all people, but no chance. So I vowed that upon my return, I would devote the rest of my life in developing, in educating the millions. That started, you may have heard about the Chinese mass education movement. We use volunteer teachers. By the way, the first literacy campaign started in China was Hunan. Hunan was the province of Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong happened to be one of the volunteer teachers. That's 1922. Nobody knew who he was. I didn't know. I didn't meet him. But he was one of the volunteer teachers. So that whole mass education began to spread like wildfire all over the country. So finally, a great national conference was called by the leading educators in Peking to decide that this movement should be a regular national association of the mass education movement, and Jimmy Yan should be the head. When I accepted the headship, we didn't have a cent. But there was a great woman in China called Madame Xiong. She was the wife of one of our premiers in China. So she was known too on her own right. She could write poetry. She was so moved by what I had to tell her what happened. So later, the second literacy campaign took place over there in the north. We invited her to come to give this speech at the commencement and to distribute the diplomas for literate citizens of China. She came. There were 1,561, both men and women. She stood there for a long time, couldn't talk. She was so touched. Finally, because she was weeping, finally, she said, I attended so many commencements, college commencements, middle school commencements. I spoke, nearly all of them. I never saw barefooted boys. I never saw a woman with the left arm holding her baby, the right arm receiving a diploma for literate citizen of the Republic of China. So I said, from now on, I'm going to resign. I'm going to resign as head of the Red Cross. I'm going to resign as the head of the National Women's Association. I'm going to devote the rest of my life to this work. She devoted 8 long years. She was found feet, by the way, of the old school. She gave lectures to scholars, professors of universities, college presidents. Because she had small feet, she couldn't stand still. She had to move around like that. Those great scholars of our country heard that woman with a mission. That's what made the difference. Not because she was a woman, or not because she was a man, but that woman called a mission, vision, to educate the millions of China. So, that National Association of ours, we had not one single cent. We had no office. She lived in a big, rather palace-like house. It was 2 rooms. I was rich enough to engage a deaf man a half-time as my secretary, and also a half-time coolie to clean the rooms, so forth. The total budget was what? I don't think you can guess. $3,600, including my big wage too. To make a long story short, because this became really by word a battle cry among the intellectuals now. They all volunteer to teach without pay. Now, the country was flooded with this textbook. This textbook, as I told you before, 4 coppers for 4 readers. That's what it cost. So, after that, we began to get support from the people, because I'm talking about the well-to-do people. Even scholars came to volunteer to be a member, so on. By this group, when I say we, I must make it clear to you. It's men who studied in Berlin in Germany, Sorbonne in France, Harvard, Yale, and so forth, and other colleges. They came back to China as presidents of colleges, deans of universities, high officials, and so forth. But at that time, the government was corrupt to the core. They were very disappointed. But when I talked to them about what we had been able to do with these literacy groups, they said, why don't we join? So to make a long story short, how I approached one by one until we had a group of these highly trained men and women to do what? To descend from the ivory tower down to the mud huts. Not doing research up there. Research in the mud huts. Research with people who are hungry. Research with people who have leaky roof. Many of them can't even have a roof. So we as a group, we decided it's no way of doing the work in the big cities. Literacy campaign is okay. But you want to do this for the 85%. The urban areas, no place. The villages, that's where they are. These muddy, dirty, smelly villages. It was a very difficult decision to make, to descend from the ivory tower down to the mud hut. Not only themselves, our wives, our children. One of my children here, Grace, was brought up right in the villages. We want to study in depth what really troubles are, the troubles that really kept them back, kept them down for 3,000 years. We can't learn from the library. There's no library mentioning the word coolie. You can't find it anywhere. So from the library, we go to the laboratory. From library to laboratory, human research laboratory, or sometimes we call it human laboratory or social laboratory. We all, here there is a credo we call credo. What we as a group believe in and carry out. This is not some wise fellow that wrote this by night. No. What I'm going to read to you, our credo, is the result of almost 70 years of struggle, sweat, tears, and blood, lifeblood. I read it. The credo of rural reconstruction. Go to the peasant people. Live among the peasant people. Live among, go to the peasant people. That's difficult enough. Live among the peasant people. In fact, we didn't live among them. We lived with them. We had no money to put up houses. We didn't want to. We didn't want to peek in to this whole village, this old county, like an American county, large county, with 400,000 people, existing in 471 villages. We had to live with them. Wherever there is one place they can let us have, we move in. So we have been living with the people, not only among the people. Some of the items I'm going to read to you could never have been possible if we had stayed every town. Go to the peasant people. Live among the peasant people. Learn from the peasant people. That's the most difficult thing with my professor friend. How could we learn from the coolies? Ridiculous. We learned that we had plenty to learn from them. What they knew with their earth wisdom, we knew nothing about. We ought to know. That's why we were ignoramus so far as their needs, problems are concerned. Learn from the peasant people. Learn. Yes. Start with what they know. Build on what they have. This sounds rather funny. Why we start with what they know, all right? Many of these rural projects have failed because what we build on what we know. Start with what we know. The next sentence is what? Build on what? Build on what they have, not what we have, not what Uncle Sam had. One day I was talking to an official in Washington. I said, Uncle Sam has spent millions for the different developing countries of the world. Could you point out to one country where, because of Uncle Sam's money and men and experts, that country is growing now, flourishing now? Could you point one? You couldn't. Why? Why do we say this? Start with what they know, build on what they have, can take roots. What they don't know, naturally we share with them. But we have plenty for them to share with us. Then we say plan with the peasant people. How many of us doing rural work are worthy enough to sit down with a peasant and talk with him about the plan for the reformation, for the improvement of their village? That's never done. It's we go there, we are the agents of change. We know everything. You do this wrong, you do that wrong, so forth. So. No. We make a plan, not we do. We, including the villager, plan with the peasant people. So after our talk together, we began to find out something they knew we knew nothing about, and vice versa. So later on, they began to feel this plan was their plan. That makes a world of difference between their interest in what you are trying to do. But teach by showing, learn by doing. The villagers are very practical people. You can't just go there, make a big talk, very eloquent and so forth. Of course, they couldn't understand much what you talk about. You can never convince them. The only thing that you can do to convince them is a demonstration. Show. He has a piece of land. About when mow is 1/6 of an acre. Then you rent. He rented, of course. I have a piece of land. Also, when mow next to his field. Then at harvest time, we invite them to come to see our harvest. And then we compare his harvest with our harvest, so on. I found out we could produce at least at the beginning 50% more, gradually 60%, gradually 70%, gradually 80%. Teach by showing. Learn by what? By doing. When they want to do, after they have learned how to do. So this thing begins to flow around, to run. Of course, there are many difficulties. Not the showcase, but the pattern. You know, in many places, you go to visit them, they have all the nice things done already. You know, we call that a showcase. That's the use. They can admire. That's all they can do. But we want a pattern that can be duplicated. Following the three principles. Must be simple, must be economical, must be indispensable. That's something they can copy. So we say here, not a showcase, but a pattern that can be copied.
Not odds and ends, but the system.
Not odds and ends,
But the system.
but a system. Not
Piecemeal, but
not piecemeal, but integrated approach. I could talk on these subjects, each one for a whole week or 2 weeks. Just one. So many projects you see going on in the rural area. There are odds and ends. When clinic here, when people school over there, so forth and so on. Odds and ends and piecemeal, not integrated. Finally, not to conform, but to transform. Not to conform. They're poor, or they've been poor all their life, and their ancestors have been poor. Why bother? Not to conform, but to transform. And finally, not relief. Relief is needed in time of big national catastrophe like an earthquake, flood, famine. Not accepted. We needed that. But make relief a policy that's fatal. We say here, not relief, but release. R-E-L-E-A-S-E. Not relief, but release. Release what I have been talking about. These men and people are called coolies. They got the brains there. They got the potential. But for 3,000 years, nobody talked about mass education. No chance. What we want to do now is to release that intellectual power here. Release that productive power to satisfy here. Release that health power to prevent preventable diseases, as we have done. We train intelligent laymen, graduates from our people's schools, how the rudiments of prevention. Prevention is not only better, but cheaper. In this whole district of Tingshan, Dr. Chen, one of our Harvard graduates, he developed a system built on many people, not on a few doctors. We have no doctors in the rural areas. In all China, these thousands of villages, there's no modern doctors. But Dr. Chen, he developed a system by training intelligent laymen and women. Women particularly good in this. They love the health work. Yeah, particularly good. How to prevent preventable diseases. According to our survey, 75% of the diseases in the rural areas are preventable. Thank God. Lastly, we want to teach them organization. Union is strength. North Scott, you belong to one tribe. I don't belong to Yan tribe. He belongs to the South tribe. Each one is tribe is a unit. That's the thing. You never belong to a community. That social consciousness was absent in China for thousands of years. So we want to teach them how to organize together, so forth. So 4 powers, potential in them. We found in order to solve their problem, only they can solve their problem. Don't you kid yourself that these big problems of the people are solved by us. That's the greatest mistake. Or by government alone, by people themselves. When the people move, the nation moves. So, the 4 powers. 1, intellectual power. We want to release that. It's there. to productive power. That includes plant production, animal production, and also cooperatives for purchasing, marketing, and so forth, so on. All that, warehousing, so forth. 3, health power. We say a sick farmer is a poor producer. She must have health instead of being laid up in bed. Lastly, organizing power. How to organize these 4 into one? We call it integration. Look at my fingers. First 4 fingers. Could any one of them isolated by itself, working by itself, pick up a chopstick? Lord, second one alone, or the third alone, or 4th alone. Just say agriculture is important, but agriculture alone is not enough. Just say education is important. Education alone is not enough, because these problems of poverty, ignorance, disease, and inertia, they interlock. The successful solution of one depends upon the successful solution of the others. So, you look at my fingers once more. Each isolated way, each can do little, not much. But, look at it. The thumb, that's what we call integration. There it becomes a power. That's one of the things we have learned from the people. My friend, I have talked long enough, but with you as a group, as I said a moment ago, so sweet, so congenial, I can't help it. I share with you the deepest in my life. Now, I've been working for 70 years now. There's a young lady there, over 40 years, Mrs. Shin. Her father was once also Prime Minister of China. When we had a big campaign for support, her father was always the chairman of it. She was the chairman of our finance committee. She, Mrs. Shin, belonged to the 2nd generation for rural construction. So, today I talk because I want to satisfy myself. As just now, Dr. Aaron showed, he was about himself. So I sacrificed myself. I dedicated my life. My wife, she was a graduate of Columbia University in physical education. Joined the YWCA. She with 2 other YWCA girls started an institution, revolutionary, called the Normal School of Physical Education for Women, at a time when food binding was in vogue, most unpopular. They have been ridiculed, they have been persecuted, but they stuck to it. They introduced physical education for the emancipation of women. So that's one reason too, how she and I became partners to each other in this whole thing. She served loyally, voluntarily, for 59 long years at the age of 85. I'm still here. Now, my friend, I'm talking to a family today. There is that family spirit here. And I wish every one of you find something you can do. What is our ultimate goal? I'll tell you. So long, poverty, disease, ignorance, inertia prevail among the people. The whole world, you can never have world peace. You realize 2/3 of the human race are all belong to the coolie class. 85% and more of African people are coolie. More than 80% of all Latin America are coolie. More than 80% of Asia are coolie. They're all coolies. 2/3 of the human race are coolies. As long as that exists, how can you talk about world peace? What is this IIRR, International Institute of Rural Reconstruction, for? It's for just this one thing only. Finding the most effective way of releasing the potential powers of our millions of people so they can stand on their own feet, possessing this fourfold power: intellectual power, productive power, health power, and organizing power. So I think that's enough. I say I have 3 bad habits. One is, when I talk to friends, I forget my age. Second bad habit is, I forget my time allotted to me to speak. Third, oftentimes I forgot to eat. About 6 o'clock in the afternoon is my lunchtime generally. Right. So here ends my talk with you. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
So I think now you have an idea why it was so important for Abby and myself to have you be here today. Dr. Yan, it was very special having you here. It was very special having Ari here. And I'd like a few more moments of your time. We're very fortunate in that we have a lot of very special people here today, beyond the people who are my friends, who are all special, friends of the IIRR. I'd like to introduce Dr. Raj, who is the chairman or the executive secretary of IIRR in India, and he has a message to us from India. Dr. Raj.
Respected teacher, Dr. Yan, Mr. and Mrs. Mason, and dear friends. It is my privilege to be here with you today, and as my brother Ari said that he has come all the way 33,000 miles or kilometers to attend this function, I have also taken the same time and the distance to come and attend this function for 2 reasons. One is that I wanted to see Dr. Yan, who had been my inspiring source of personality and inspirer in my mission and in my work in the country, and to attend the birthday party of Mr. Mason, who has dedicated his life to relieve hunger and poverty in the country in a manner that is appropriate in his own desire in his heart. And therefore, it is my privilege to read out to you the greetings which is coming from the Indian Rural Reconstruction Movement from India. Dear Mr. Mason, sincere birthday greetings to you for a long, happy and fruitful life from all the members of Indian Rural Reconstruction Movement and South Asia Rural Reconstruction Movement. It is very encouraging to witness the success of dedicated people like you and your family who have proved that nothing is impossible. It is true that people's potential is immense, and once they are aware of a real need, they would raise their hands to help out. But it takes a good and dedicated person with the right qualities to bring out the potential generosity and goodness in the people. We thank you for setting the ideal. You and your family have brought hopes to millions of our hungry people and proved that there is still a lot of humanitarianism and commitment in the world that is worth living for. We, the alumni of International Institute of Rural Reconstruction, who imbibed the spirit of rural reconstruction from the great reconstruction experiences of Dr. James Yen, are particularly happy for your valuable support in the mighty mission of ending world hunger and uplifting the submerged peasants of the Third World. We are particularly happy to know that Dr. Yen is attending this special occasion. We wish you many more happy birthdays in which all the people of the world will participate, either with lighted candles and sincere prayers or significant contributions. Though far away, we in India and South Asia will offer special prayers to you, a very special person, on this auspicious day, as a mark of our deep admiration for all your efforts to end world hunger. May God bless you with many more such years of selfless service. This message comes from about little more than 300 organizations who are members of this rural reconstruction movement, who are all sharing the concept and philosophy of Dr. James Yen. I came to know Dr. James Yen, and I was fortunate to be a student of Dr. James Yen in the early 70s. And as he said that people have to come down from the ivory towers, and I was one among them in my country. After doing my PhD in management, I left my job and entered into organization of the rural peasants, which mission I have taken as a lifetime commitment and continuing my service in the same lines. And like that, as he has inspired many people, we are also trying to inspire many people to work with us as one family. We know that the earth is one, but the world is not. We are in two worlds. We have the first world and we have the third world. We know that within the third world there are poverty and squalor, but also we realize that even the first world is not safe. First world is no longer going to be safe because the poverty in the third world and the poverty in the first world threatens human race. And it is time that we realize that interdependence of the first world with the third world, or the third world with the first world, is an essential thing that we all have to realize. And we also know that we as humankind do not just depend on science and technology for human progress and prosperity and peace. We also depend on human conscience and human morality. And with these words, I conclude my message. And once again, I thank you, Mr. Mason and Mrs. Mason. Thank you.
Don't forget, in the midst of all our festivities and this wonderful time together, we must remember today is our Merton's birthday. We wish to confer upon you a new degree The degree is starve longevity for 1,000 years. Some say that's a little too long. Some say he deserves it.